Well, at this time on Tuesday, Israelis will be heading to the polls to elect a new Knesset, or parliament, for the fifth time in under 4 years. As you know, Israel's parliamentary system is made up of several parties. They create coalitions to try to reach the 61 seats needed to form a ruling government. Well, now the final polls suggest Benjamin Netanyahu and his potential allies are hovering around the knife-edge number of 60 seats. And the drama of election night could be whether the former Prime Minister scrapes above that. Well, CNN's Hadass Gold joining me live from Jerusalem. Hadass.
Well, Becky, I think political reporters in Israel are starting to feel a bit like Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day, because here we are again, fifth election in under 4 years, and yet once again, the opinion polls in the days leading up to Election Day tomorrow morning do not show that any bloc has the 61 seats needed in order to form a majority in the government. However, the pro-Netanyahu bloc does seem to have the closest number, potentially closest to that 61 number. Some polls show them at 60, some do show him at 61, but the anti-Netanyahu bloc don't seem to be any closer. But there is a major difference this time around than the last 4 elections, and that's the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu will not be running for this election day as the sitting prime minister.
The Bibi show is back, replete with a Bibi mobile encased in bulletproof glass, aiming to once again become the main attraction. Polls show Benjamin Netanyahu does not yet have a clear path towards a majority. So the former prime minister is trying to pull every possible vote out of his base.
Bibi is king of Israel! Bibi is king of Israel!
And just like the previous 4 elections in just over 3 years, for most Israeli voters, the question at the ballot box will be whether they want Netanyahu or not.
We're not talking about any other policy issue really beyond Netanyahu and what Netanyahu will do on the day after the election.
Netanyahu's ongoing corruption trial, where he faces charges including bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, charges Netanyahu denies, will be his first priority, analysts say.
Perhaps firing the Attorney General, those kinds of maneuvers that will allow him to free himself from the legal process that he's facing and to deliver the goods to his political allies.
Those political allies will likely include the far-right wing of Israeli politics, people like Itamar Ben-Gvir, an extremist who has been convicted for supporting terrorism and inciting racism, now expected to help garner at least 12 seats for Netanyahu's bloc. He was once an outcast of Israeli politics. Known for his ardent support of settlers and inflaming Israeli-Palestinian tensions, just last year Netanyahu said Ben-Gvir wasn't fit to serve in the cabinet. But now, desperate for his votes, Ben-Gvir certainly could get a ministerial position, Netanyahu said this month.
And then the question is, what is the price that the far right is going to extricate from him? Will it be perhaps cancelling the disengagement law from 2015, meaning that perhaps some settlements in the West Bank, which were in the past abandoned by Israel, will be rebuilt, reoccupied, and perhaps further steps towards some type of annexation in the West Bank?
But at least one former advisor says Netanyahu won't make any extreme moves because the alliance with Ben-Gvir won't last.
Netanyahu's strategy is work for the short term, and then for another short term and another short term, and not for the long term.
61 seats are needed to form a government, and if he wins, Netanyahu has denied that he'll try to quash his trial or that the extremists will have power.
Well, I wouldn't do anything that affects me. I think my trial is unraveling as it is. I've had such partners in the past, and they didn't change an iota of my policies.
But before he can decline such policy ideas, he'll need to claw his way back to power, one parliamentary seat at a time. And Becky, as with any election, so much of what happens will be determined on voter turnout, who actually shows up to the polls tomorrow. For Bibi, for Netanyahu and his supporters, they're hoping to get what they estimate is hundreds of thousands of voters who didn't turn out last time in 2021. But then there's also Arab Israelis that make up something like 20% of the population. And if they come out in force, that could be the main difference between whether Benjamin Netanyahu's bloc of parties managed to get that 61 seats or not. Becky.
Yeah, fascinating.